Hi, everybody. Of the reunion specials that we're doing for Arc 4, the Firebrand one intrigues me the most. Because I talk about it a lot, but this is an autopsy. I really want to know what went wrong. And I don't think it's one thing. I think it's many things. But we're going to get all that off our chest. We have a bunch of listener-submitted questions. Thank you all so much. Most of it's on our Discord. I had a couple emailed to me. And yeah, I think people were really curious about this. But first, I'm Jason. I'm usually the Dungeon Master. Going around the table, introducing everybody, starting with Jamie.
Hey, first. Hi, I'm Jamie. I used to play Boolothius, the Tiefling Paladin.
It's weird saying used to, right? Like it doesn't.
I didn't really know how to end. I play, but not anymore. So.
Yeah, well, most people go with used to.
Yeah.
And Rob.
Hey, I'm Rob. I played Giolo Fane, and now I release him into the DNR canon like a tiny sparrow to suffer.
It might be fine. I don't know. Like, well, okay.
You heard how he ended. You were there.
Yeah, no, okay, yeah. With
He's succumbing to madness, but like, whatever.
I feel like that one's not my fault. Like, you can't, like, you.
Kelsey, seen too much.
I'm Kelsey, and I play Calypso, the half-elf bard.
And Zach.
Did nothing wrong.
We'll get to it.
Traitor! Oh,
we'll get to
excuse
it.
me, the hay fever.
What's up? My name is Zach, and I played Paxton Warren, the old human / warforged / paladin, or not, cleric / mage? Half-baked?
Kind of? Like, yeah.
You
somewhere
know,
in there.
Budding mage?
I think you might want to turn your mic just a little bit. It's like half picking you up.
What about now?
Oh, there we go.
Oh my god, that's so much better.
Beautiful.
Perfect. Sorry about that.
Dude, you're fine. Like it's, yeah. And Brie?
Hi, I'm Brianna, and I played Guinevere Lothius from Firebrand. The Taffling.
Okay. Let's take things back to late 2019, everybody. A heady time.
You know, why?
Oh,
Why?
gosh, that was like 10 years ago.
Did you know? Okay, I'm sorry. Really quick, can I just go on the smallest little tangent?
Yeah, this is informal.
Tide Pods was 2018.
What?
Holy
That was
shit.
only 3 years ago.
Oh my god.
Right?
I mean, they still exist.
Right?
They didn't go anywhere.
No, eating
the
Tide
people
Pods.
eating
Oh,
people.
yeah.
That was 2018.
That feels like
anyway.
1,000 plankings ago. Like that feels
Oh
like
my
that's how we measure
planking.
time.
There was an episode
Anyway.
of The Office that had planking in it.
Good.
That's how old that is.
So 2019, we're getting ready to roll into Arc 4, and you guys are given a choice between a bunch of different plot hooks. That's what we've been trying to do each arc now. You get this one and you go into it. What were your expectations? Like, what did you think the campaign was gonna be before all the left turns we took? Like, going into it.
Well, I mean, when I first read the plot hook thing in like the list of all of them, and this is why I even put this one that high, because my immediate thought was like, okay, well, not everyone who signs up to join this group is necessarily going to have pure intentions, and that part was really interesting to me. See, like, why are all these different characters wanting to join up? So, like, every person in the group already has like something that's like really interesting to kind of dig into, and that's like, I just was immediately thinking of like, okay, well, what if someone is like working for a different side and they're kind of like an infiltrator on some level? So that's like what I went into this thinking of.
See, I think that speaks to my naivete, because I was like, yeah, everyone's going to work together and we're going to clean up these streets and it's going to be, there wasn't a fucking tiny bit of me that was like, well, someone could be like, I wasn't thinking of like intrigue and it's like, yeah, we're just going to hand these.
created Brightport. Like,
Yeah,
I
know.
did that.
And I handed you guys like keys to the kingdom. Basically, it's like, yeah, we're going to give these guys crazy lateral power that no one else
Literally.
has, and yeah, like it never
all
thought
work
for a
out.
second. This is why. This is why I'm not running anything with actual power.
I kind of thought it was going to be like a Therian Law and Order, where we know,
Yeah,
like,
I was just thinking of that.
That's
like,
where my mind went too.
Criminal Minds
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Criminal Mi- yeah, like
I was
Criminal
kind of
Minds.
expecting more like detective work in a sense, and
Yeah.
less riots.
So in my head, like that's kind of like half that, half cops, I guess. Like I thought it was going to be you chasing down bad guys, and like some of these are like cut and dry cases, right? Like the gambling one, I figured that's cut and dry. You guys go in there, you bust it up, whatever, and then like there's this big drug thing in the distance, and like that's going to take some.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're going to have to get boots on the ground, and
That's how that worked out. That's,
Mhm.
that was our strike one, wasn't it? The early death. That was strike one.
That was
like
yeah.
episode 1.
It was
That was
episode
episode-
one.
yeah.
It was, yeah.
I remember
We had a lovely
yeah.
sit down dinner.
Like like that was that like first thing where I was like, gosh, I really don't want to be playing D&D anymore. I felt that for a while because since like playing other kinds of systems, I was like, man, this is a lot better for storytelling than D&D. But then to have like the first episode just like a random roll causing the character to flat out die, it's like,
Yeah, that's
this is
So let's talk. You know, what? Let's dig into that. There's like 4 things I want to bring up. Obviously, these are optional rules. They're in the DMG and everything, but like I lathered it on so that you could die. Like it's not an insta death, but like basically a crit knocks out, like just takes out a level 1 character, right? Like it's tough being level 1. And, that happened such that it was like, okay, critness, and then like you do, bonus damage to yourself. It was something. And 1,000 times that works in your favor, where it's like, oh, we're getting to do, it's just that time. It was really poorly like timed. And we hadn't even really discussed leaving D&D at that point. Like, I think after that, we started talking much more like, it's like, maybe we need to pack a parachute. And then we talked about doing our own system. And Kelsey's in there. Kelsey and Xavier, holy shit. Between the two of them, it's like, well, have you read these 6 400-page books? And it's like, yeah, I'll just sit and read all of Cypher tonight. Like,
short. Thank you very much. I was not the
Okay,
one recommending 400-page books.
Xavier suggested Cypher
Yeah,
more than
that's
one
the
occasion. I bought so many books. It's like, okay, I want to read this, but it's like, oi. Was anyone else, I guess, feeling that creative restriction with D&D, or was it just kind of like, hey, that's what we signed up for and it didn't bother you?
I've never felt that restriction with D&D. Like I'm excited to transfer to a new thing, but I think as far as like making characters, it's very much sometimes having guidelines can really help trigger an idea in me, whereas being given a blank slate can kind of tense you up.
agree
Where
with
you're
that.
like, I don't know what to do.
I
Well,
like
I
the
would
making
say-
characters part. It's the when you play and when the rolls start happening and how often the edge cases end up occurring.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rob, you were saying.
Yeah, just that the more time that we spent with you deciding to house rule D&D, it was becoming clear that D&D is the wrong system, right? Like if you're house ruling it that hard at a certain point, if you're stripping significant numbers of spells, if you're rejiggering the lethality, one thing after another, like it became very clear over time that maybe there's a better foundation instead of just like building a dozen different attachments onto the house, to try to make the house what you wanted.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I guess it just felt undoable. Like it was too big of a thing. It's like, so we find another system and none of them are going to fit like a glove. And like Cortex is Cortex fits because you can just change it.
Mhm.
Like that's why it fits.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
if we just took like something from Monty Cook or like something, Pathfinder 2 or something like that, none of it was going to fit us because
Mm-mm.
like it wasn't built for, this specific case in mind. And like I was making so many D&D people angry because like the more I changed, the more pissed off like the rules purists were.
Yeah.
And like
and
they weren't happy. And
the worst baggage that D&D has is that it is the game, right? It is the game that everyone has touched, everyone has played, everyone has an opinion about, right? Like you can't just, you can tune into a podcast in any other system and unless you went looking for a specific rule set, you can trip over something that you've never experienced before and have no baggage about it.
Yeah. And okay. Again, I joked, it's like burn those bridges, Rob. Like get go out and fire. Like how did that bother you that I was changing so much stuff? Because you're a person who you're a Borg for RPG systems.
That's Paxton.
You just no. Like Rob just floats through space and assimilates new systems and just like boom. Like you are super into like
I have put the children of drive-through RPGs owners through college at a certain point. I'm terrible. I just need a hit sometimes, and then I pick up a new system, and then so I just there comes a point where it's like, okay, we're going to house rule D&D into doing what we want to do, and then there's all this leftover stuff that's gone untouched that sends a different signal than what we're transforming it into. So you end up with that, like, D&D is a system that wants you to get into a lot of fights and exercise your cool powers. There is a world where that gets you killed, right? So the more you had one half of the system sending you the signal, go play with the cool toys, and the other half of the signal being like, but if it goes wrong, you're in an early grave, right? So that you need the system to be in harmony with your intent for the game, and we gave making D&D do that the good college try.
Gave it 5 years.
yeah. So even into the master's degree, even got past the bachelor's into the master's, trying to D&D do that, and it just wasn't working. So I think this is the shift in system is ultimately wise, and the way Cortex is constructed, as like you open the book and it's a kit. You can't just open the book and just be like, I think I kind of know what I want. Like you do have to set the ground rules with Cortex of like, what do I want to play? What does it feel like? Therefore, which modules am I sticking in? And it's really cool that they all work like modules, right? You get these big, you're not nitpicking tiny chunks of system. You're taking about 6 different big handfuls of system and make it. So there's not a ton of choices to make to get it to start behaving. Obviously you can get more fine tuning after that, but that it's you grab several large chunks and that kind of forms the core around which the rest of whatever you do orbits.
I've played a bunch of practice sessions now, and there wasn't one time where I was sitting there going, it's like, oh, I don't think this is going to work. Every single time, like it clicked with people when after they rolled their first attack, it's like, that's it? Okay. Like it just clicks. Mm-hmm. Everyone kind of gets it, and I can't wait because I'm not sitting there slapping the dice out of their hands saying, you can't do the cool thing.
Yeah.
Because like D&D is meant to be like power fantasy, wish fulfillment. So like eventually it gets to the point where it's way harder for you to fail than to succeed. Like it's almost impossible for you to slip up.
Well, and so also kind of video gamey in its mechanical density, but only because video games learn from D&D in the first place, right? That like
it's not
so
as bad
much
as 4E.
Right. But there's definitely still this element of like, getting down to the difference between like dealing 27 and 28 points of damage, right? Like in lots of systems, that's the same hit. Whereas in D&D, it's like, no, every little point matters, and you dock it off your hit points, and maybe it triggers this, that, or that, and And there's a joy to that, right? There's a joy to, seeing what the mechanics output and having that reinforce the story, or there's a joy to playing the math game, but it's also way more. It's way more combat centric than the typical Theria arc is, and I mean, I still think D&D is in a bad place as far as presuming 4 to 6 encounters per day or whatever the number is. Like nobody plays like that, so they need to discard that baggage as soon as they can. But so far they have not.
I mean, the only time you're doing this shit is like in Strahd or like some real hardcore like dungeon crawler thing.
Yeah, because it's they still want to preserve. They still want to preserve the ability to do that D&D thing of the dungeon delve, where there are enemies in rooms, there are treasures in rooms, and that's great in a way for the beginning dungeon master, in that they can say, well, I want to run D&D for my friends. Well, I'm going to do something extremely mechanical where everything is told to me in a location, and I'm triggering encounters, and I'm triggering combats, traps, etc. And it's very rote, and lets me go by the book until I start doing more dramatic stuff or what have you. But at the same time, I think podcasting in general has revealed, or maybe perhaps created a stronger push toward the kind of D&D that gets played on podcasts, right? Like podcasts are feeding back into the regular table.
I think it's very interesting that so for damn near 10 years, like we played 4E for 5 years, we played 5E for about 5 years, and so many emails start off with, it's like, man, I love the way, your guys' stuff sound, or like Critical Role, or whatever it is, and they're like, why doesn't my campaign feel like that? It's like, there's half a dozen reasons. We 4E, do you know how willy-nilly I was with just, it's like, well, I don't like that, so we're not doing it. I didn't think about the mechanics of the larger system like that. The stuff was grossly under or overpowered and stuff because there were so many layers. 5E was a little easier, but you basically, we have the benefit of cutting out boring stuff, and there's so much, and it's kind of unrealistic for people who are listening to these podcasts walking into the hobby for the first time going, it's like, well, let's do that. They're going to get bored, I think.
Yeah, it's like, why don't my things sound like that? Well, because you aren't being edited.
Right.
That too, yeah.
You don't hear the long minutes of technical difficulties that happen mid-session.
Right. How do I do this again? It's been a while since combat. Can somebody walk me through this?
Guys, I've got a thing. I've got a thing. It should have triggered about 2 turns ago. And then,
shoot.
But it's a life or death, so you should let me do it.
Yeah.
I've got a thing activates the Manchurian Candidate switch in my head that makes me want to go on a killing spree, and I'm so glad that I don't have to deal with that ever again. Hopefully, maybe.
Don't jinx yourself.
We'll see. I still play D&D, obviously, with the Patreon groups, but part of their fun is to punish me.
Yeah, that's what they enjoy.
Part of their. Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, do what you want to me, and I show up, and so.
Are you saying you run it like a dunk tank? Here's the podcast guy ready to fall in the pool.
Not most of the time. PG Group 2 ran a fight that was so belabored with math and mechanics and measuring the distance of walls and the circumferences of cones and spheres. And it was against a beholder. And there were so many things on the field that all of us were having no fun and all the fun because we were laughing at how much not fun it was, if that makes sense. So let's do a little exercise before we jump into more listener-centered questions. If you can go back to exactly one moment in the campaign and presume we weren't playing D&D and get rid of that moment that was changed because of a D&D rule. We'll start with Bree.
Remember that time when I rolled a 1 and I stabbed myself in the stomach and died?
Yes,
I
I
think
do remember that.
The fallout from that turned out pretty cool, though.
You know what? I do like being a cyborg, though.
Yeah, that's dope.
That-
I would totally do Paxton's speech, man. That's like number one for me.
That's valid.
Do you feel like that was unrealistic because of D&D, or like just it was bad?
Well,
So
it just
wait,
kind of
you wanted
sucked
just-
that because of like 1 or 2 bad dice rolls, the entire campaign shifted. Like what we
Changed.
had,
Something that
Yeah.
Paxton did not
the
intend.
kind of
The
story
funny
that
thing
we
is-
went in wanting to tell ended up not happening.
The funny thing about that dice roll, if anybody remembers, it was a good dice roll. Like, that was the
That's
problem.
it was too good.
Right.
Yeah.
It was too
It was
good.
too good.
And that's the thing where like you get into like the D&D rules where it's like if Paxton were actually standing there giving a speech, he would have been able to see the crowd and reacted accordingly to how the crowd was reacting to mitigate the response. But because it all came down to like 3 rolls, he wasn't
And
able to do any fixing.
It's really
to
tough
that
to
problem.
run something like that, because if you run that kind of thing realistically, you're legitimately listening to someone prep for a debate. And it's
Yeah.
not fun anymore.
Yeah.
But if you do it the other way, where it's like, yeah, we'll just throw 1 roll at it, then it's way too simplistic. And you know what I mean? Like it's like I'm punishing you for doing well. That one was just like it built and built, and I felt like what we got out of that was really cool. Like, I mean, the riot not so much,
Yeah.
but like the you know,
The plot.
Paxton's arc, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing too, is it's hard to go back and be like, oh, I wish we could change this one thing, because in the end, I mean, all our characters made it.
Yeah, because in the end, it's
Yeah.
also
You know?
like we know each other so well. We've been playing with each other for so long, and we like work on things behind the scenes to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Because like
Yeah.
that's
Oh yeah, that this. Do you know how disastrous? Going back to the like, why doesn't my campaign said like? Do you know how disastrous it would be if we all just met up once a month, didn't speak before that, sat down, and it's like, okay, this is happening. Like,
yeah.
that's not to say we plan things out behind the scenes, but you guys talk about motivations, like what,
Yeah.
like basically presupposing that there are downtimes where the group's sitting in the lobby or something. It's like, hey, so that riot, let's talk about that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rob, what about you? What would you change? Like one moment.
Oh, I don't know. It's excuse me. I don't know
I've
that
got
there's
one
any
for you.
one.
If you don't have one,
Well, I don't know that there's any one role kind of hanging over Giolo. I can think of a time I tried to cast Charm Person or something and thought I was going to be real smooth, and then it didn't happen. But it was, I mean, some of if we were to go back to the Paxton speech moment, so Paxton rolled real high, and then the Dungeons and Randomness machine kicked in and started rolling D10s to get things on scales of 1 to 10. And we ended up somewhere that like stopped feeling like success on a check, I guess. So I think in the moment it felt like, well, you know, okay, we're saying it's really impactful, but is the intent the speech was impactful or that the speech was helpful? Should the high die roll mean that the speech was helpful, or just that it drove people into a zealous frenzy?
and I think that's where. Sorry, go ahead.
So I think there is an alternate reality where that was played with that was, shall I say, that was dungeon mastered with a different philosophy, I guess, and maybe that fork of reality is a very different and more optimistic, not necessarily happy-go-lucky, but a more hopeful Firebrand than the one we ended up playing.
And I got a lot of shit for that one too, and I get it. Like, I get why people think, oh, you're punishing someone for doing well. There's a few things about that. At no point was I going to this situation thinking like Zach was going to make a speech. So like, it's not something I prepped. And then there was nothing about it that was like, no one was reacting negatively to Paxton. It was basically, do I ignore the lore of this town and what Paxton is actually saying and just pay attention to dice rolls? Or do I not pay so much attention to dice rolls and listen to what he's saying as a character and reacting how these people might react in this bad part of town, making little money? Like like you get into an interpretation thing. And like I bet 100 DMs would play that completely differently. Like it's completely your philosophy.
It is a philosophical. Not only is it's not just a philosophical call; it's an improvisational call. Mm-hmm. So I'm not trying to sit here and bust your chops for it either, because like
not at all.
Yeah. It's like guess what? Improvisation has hiccups sometimes, and they send the whole sketch or the whole thing into weird directions, right? And that's fundamentally what D&D is. So yeah, but I'm just saying I can imagine that role being interpreted by a GM with a different philosophy and giving us a far more controlled or generous result than the chaos that followed.
Yeah, I never saw it hitting a riot either. That was... Kels, what about you?
It's hard to pick just one moment because it's like for me, I think the big thing is just like what happened when we played and we had to go into combat. Like every time, like I can just think it's like, okay, then we're gonna sit here for 2 hours and try not to fall asleep, and it's just gonna be a long slog. And it just makes things like end of the arc boss battles become really anticlimactic, and like just anytime like we just had a combat in a session, it's like, okay, here we go again. It's kind of like doing that, and because of that, we kind of, I think everyone sort of avoided combat, so then when we went into combat, we had forgotten a lot of stuff, and so then it became even worse, and it was just like that sort of...
Yeah.
I feel like the goal in combat for us was never to win, it was just don't die.
Yeah, specifically with
like anytime we got into combat, it was almost like, okay, it would be great if we caught these drug dealers, but let's just not die, guys. Okay, let's nobody die. That's the goal.
I would definitely say there was a bad case of the yips after that first combat.
Yeah,
like it was
and even
real
the
bad.
second.
Yeah,
And
I think it's like across
second one didn't go much better.
Arcs, like combat just felt like the pace just came to a halt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think generally, based on what we've played with Cortex so far, like there's a retraining. Like all of your like muscle reflexes say like, okay, Giolo is a perfect example. We spend most of an episode building up what Giolo is, who he is, how he reacts to things. The very first time he walks into an alley, uses his powers, I roll, miss, okay, end of my turn. It's like, that's lame. Yep. Like, he should be able to get that. So in Cortex, there's
that whole step up thing. Yeah.
There's like it's like you have options. It's like, well, I'll spend a plot point because I really want to do this. And it's like, you have options other than roll, miss, that's the end of my turn. I guess I'll wait another round to like, it feels demoralizing. And I think it feels a little better if you have options to kind of like, it's more of a chess game instead of I'm going to take this one die, roll it, find out I suck, and then move on. Zach, what about you? Was there something that you would like flat out change? Like you, I would say, definitely won the race for most changes to a character this arc. But,
it was a close one, though. Gwen almost had me.
I thought Bree was going to win that after episode 1, but she tapered back and like you surged
I did
ahead.
have a dragon face at the end that I constantly reminded everyone about.
That doesn't compare to having your soul displaced into a body you can't feel anymore.
Yeah,
it's
no. You still win. I'm just saying I did try. I was trying to keep up. It's just
and that really leads to the crux of what I would change, really. Like this arc, it was near perfect for me. I enjoyed every second of it except that one time where like as Paxton, we jumped inside the building trying to catch the bad guys, and 2 guys catch me, and I think I don't fight defensively. I just get bursted like a starburst in someone's mouth, and I just die instantly. And I'm just like, oh my god. I'm supposed to be the healer and the pseudo tank. I just get popped instantly. I just knew the fight was doomed. But somehow we pulled it out, but like died instantly. And I just wish I could take it back.
Yeah,
Which
and
flavor of
that's one thing
Starburst
that,
are you, by the way?
If I'm doing it by
I think he's a strawberry.
death, that was a yellow Starburst.
Okay, no.
Oh, that
The
was
yellow
yellow.
ones are
Disgusting.
good.
Ugh.
The yellow ones are fine. They're
They're
fine.
one
I
of the-
like
they're
yellow
like
ones, but
the
that death
top
had some
flavor.
zing to it. Like
But-
That's
they're
the
good.
zing. That's the perfect word.
Yeah,
Or
it's
orange.
got yeah.
But that's the thing, like going back
Oh, I
to like
love
the
some
D&D like Cortex thing, it's like we did so much prep work for that and like planning out like, okay, we're gonna come from the ceiling and stuff, and then it meant nothing.
None of it
That's
mattered.
kind of the thing where it's like, ugh.
And it's weird because D&D, more than Cortex, has like strategic value in where you're standing, right? Like
Mhm.
there's like I even put extra shit in where it's like if you get you get a +2 for this because you're overwhelming them and all that stuff, and that mattered less than I think Cortex stuff does so far, where you guys get assets for working together and
Mhm.
stuff like that. You just get more dice to try and succeed,
Mhm.
and it had a weird vibe where like you guys felt cursed after the like third fight. I'm like, maybe fighting's not for you. Maybe
Yeah.
like peaceful protests. Let's work with that. Maybe red tape is the way to work. Like you're legislators now. Like
Maybe bureaucracy.
what? Okay, what was the Titanic moment for you guys? Because people Primus asked, how did each player individually feel about splitting the party at the end? Not as characters, but as players. But like that. But when did you know this ship was going down? You weren't going to pull it up anymore.
I think it was
When
Was
Bo
there
was
a moment?
packing. When Bo
Oh,
was packing
really?
up.
if it,
That's when I
for me
knew.
it's like after each like effed up combat mission thing, like I think I made a post on Facebook. It's like, okay guys, get together, figure it out, because I don't know a reason in character why we keep staying out of group.
Yeah.
And that just kept happening
Yeah.
more and more, and it was like, like I'm like really trying to.
You hit that
It's like if you like know,
the Ironhide conundrum.
exactly.
Basically, it's like this doesn't make logical
Except
sense
it's not
anymore.
really
that we
like
would
that.
it's not because of out of character drama. It's because we've like our characters have known each other for like 2 weeks, and we've almost died 5
Right.
times. Like,
And that's something I'm really glad I took that deal at the beginning where it was like, okay, I'm going to roll one personality trait. And it's like, you're egotistical. It's like, that's what carried Gwen through it. It's like, all right, well, she's egotistical, so she's not going to fucking stop. Even though she should. And that's the only reason she kept going. And I feel like other characters would not have kept going if, like,
That's interesting because I think a lot of people would interpret egotistical as you staying on a team that's losing would be too much for your pride to handle or something, you know, like you disassociate just because, you know.
see, for me, I read it more as like a headstrong kind of egotistical where it's like,
Right,
no, I'll
yeah.
show you. And that's even at the end when she was talking about, it's like, well, when you come back, you're going to see that this is going to be awesome. Because it's got to be, because I'm awesome and we're going to do this. Like,
And it was.
and it went well, as far as I know. How's it going?
Rob, what was the Titanic moment for you?
I mean, the kind of off-camera revelation that Calypso was going to assassinate, assist in the assassination, basically of Paxton. As a player, that was that moment. I will say though, and everyone's kind of saying similarly that we were really pulling away from each other very much for the back half of that arc. And so in a way, the end of the arc was extremely liberating because we could embrace the reality of what we already felt about the group,
Mhm.
right? That we
Yeah.
needed to explode, and it was really cathartic to have it just go as catastrophically as it did. Certainly I loved Giolo spotting the attack and the damage dealt to Paxton to try to kind of, push it, just nudge him toward death's
Mhm.
door. Maybe you won't see it happening. And then Giolo just went like full on, like, so someone's trying to kill assassins, conspiracy, right? Like the whole, like he had his descent into crushing paranoia. triggered by that someone he basically worked alongside could be trying to sabotage this entire endeavor.
I do love that he's like extremely like paranoid and conspiracy theorist stuff, but he's right. It's that like everyone else is like,
That's
dude,
the
chill,
best
but
kind of conspiracy theory.
yeah, exactly. It's like, no, Jill is the correct one. It's just, it's really like good irony there. Like,
yeah, Jill and Paxton are gonna find the lizard people. You watch. We're gonna get the lizard people out of the government.
I was thinking about that because we have Morgan Osgood as like this, like this crazy ranting, they faked the moon landing type of guy. It would be neat to have someone who acted similar but actually ranted about only correct conspiracy theories. They implanted someone in completely correct. Like it's
Every single time.
I feel like if you said
There's an army of
presents
warforged
it
coming
those,
together
like,
under the city.
it's like, oh man, it's like the houses are like putting people in positions of power. It's like, yeah, it's Brightport. What do you think? Like everyone's just kind of like, shit.
there's a dead SWAT team member commanding a legion of Warforged. It's like, okay, uncle. Like it's very,
like,
you just
especially now, like so much has happened in this scene. You're just like,
Sure, why
yeah,
not?
Exactly.
let's do a fun one.
Okay.
Can we? This is from God Tier Saint 73. Can we get a walkthrough of Calypso's mansion? And what was the plan for it if the party actually went to it? I can only answer the second half. Well, I can answer both halves, but like,
Keep listening.
yeah, we
The house still exists?
still exists. We wanted to do like there might be a bonus episode or something. We want to explore it because it's one of those cool things. It's the only cool thing Kelsey got out of Theriathon.
Oh yeah, Theriathon. She got the car too. The car was pretty dope. It saved everybody's life.
But like, they also got like
Also from Theriathon, though. That was
True, you're right.
that was a little later on. That the
That
house
was pretty cool, though.
yeah. But like, if you remember, that was the day like Ryan kept taking stuff, and Kelsey got the punishment on another
Kelsey,
group just by
yeah.
sheer happenstance. So my plan. In case you guys just decide it's like I don't want to do this anymore. Like there's a whole story with the castle and like what like
Is it
who owned
haunted?
what's going on with it. We can't get to it right now, but it'll show up on the show at some point. You always miss ghosts.
I
by
do
that
always
much.
miss ghosts by that much.
Yeah.
I love ghosts. If it's haunted, I'll cry. I'll be so upset if it's haunted.
All right.
But as far as Gwen knows, you guys are still friends, so like you could still invite her over.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Okay, but like haunted is the most obvious on the nose fantasy trope to apply to this house. I want it to be Scooby-Doo haunted, where it's someone living in the house faking a haunting to try to get Calypso to give up the
Their
house.
uncle is still alive, but they just want to be left alone like Bilbo Baggins,
Yep.
so they pretend to be a ghost.
Oh man,
that's
this
great.
butler like kissed up to the previous owner, thought they nailed it, and got like it's like you inherit my old socks, and it's like the castle goes to someone I've never met. Just like that would be great.
That would be pretty cool. Oh, no.
That's canon now. That's what.
Scooby-Doo haunted.
So Brightport is in a state of flux. Let's call it.
Yeah, it's really fluxed.
It's pretty fluxed.
Yep.
How Orwellian do you see things getting? Was how it was basically asked. Are we going full Orwellian or only partly? This is from Sirio Forel.
It's gonna be great.
All I'll say is hashtag vote Lothius. That's all.
No, don't.
God, I'm very excited
Please
to hear
do.
what happens.
Don't do it.
Again, there's going to be actual mayoral elections for the show. People, you guys out there will get to vote on who will be the mayor of Brightport.
What do they need to do to
do
vote,
that.
by the way? Do they need to join the
I was just
Discord?
about to ask.
Follow on Twitter.
I was going
What
to
are we
tally it
gonna
up. I was going to tally it up over all of our social media. We haven't posted anything about it yet, but
do? Which means you
they
can
will be
vote twice if you want to cheat.
As long as you engage with us, yes. So yes,
For every share, it's 5 votes.
We'll go nuts. It's as corrupt as regular politics. So get in there. So this is mostly a question for Zach, I guess. Like how forceful is Paxtron being, I guess?
Well, first and foremost, whatever happens with the elections, I want you to know that the Warforged initiative is grandfathered in the bylaws. Somehow they got in there. Who knows?
I don't think that's how that works. But okay.
They just squiggled his way in there. Let's not worry about that. But it's I wouldn't call it forceful per se. Just necessary changes that are overdue. The city has been going one way for a long time, and maybe it's time for a hard change. Paxton would never do it to where it would be a violent occurrence. We had plans to step by step remedy things in the city, especially with the Gwen's initiative with the ships and all that stuff. Got to see how that went. I'm pretty sure when we rolled for it, it was going well to begin with. So, maybe if the Warforged initiative shows a little progress here and there, whoever is elected, they'll see how it goes. At least give it a chance. But I wouldn't,
That's so 2 questions came from Discord. One from Revan and another I'm looking for. But basically, one was asking when you're going to execute Order 66. Like, just really go full ham with it. And then Revan was asking if, let's say, Paxtron doesn't win the campaign, is not declared mayor, and the person who takes over declares you and the robots illegal, would you leave Brightport? You don't have to answer.
Now, are we talking illegal like they went into the laws and officially made either Warforged or whatever specifically Paxton was doing illegal? Like official illegal?
I don't think so. Okay, this doesn't help Warforged people relations. Obviously, that was already stretched to the breaking point. But on top of that, like, you have, these perfectly healthy Warforged just kind of like monitoring people in the city. Like, okay, your mobile spy cams and super strong and leaping to the top of buildings, like spider climbing up them. It's like that's some people consider that as a breach of privacy and unsettling and dystopian. So that specifically, like, you and those droids gone. Again, you do not have to answer.
No, I can give an answer. Who would Paxton just set up shop and leave? Man, it would depend.
It's one of those moments. It's one of those moments where you have to decide whether lawful means obeys the law or lawful means dedicated to order, even in defiance of like what you might interpret as wrong-headed laws, right? So that's the question.
And it's so interesting to me. Like, that's like, by the time we got to the end of Firebrand, we finally got to some like we found the beef. Like, there it is. Like, I want to dig into this, and we ran out of time. So like, I'm so glad we're continuing with that storyline. It's like, so what happens? Like, what like.
Right, in Paxtron, the actual Warforged has been seeing resistance since his inception, since he's came out of the lab. So that's not really a deterrent, but an actual set in stone law, set in place law would be kind of, a breach to his own integrity. So maybe there's a good chance he would just cease function, because he is at this point he is an ever living all. Like, he's just, he will be. So he will probably just kind of shut down like a computer until someone boots him back up via law again. Yes.
Just wait.
He'll just wait out the regime.
So like, so there still has to be a vote for mayor, but then laws just don't become laws. So there might be a point where you get to fight against the creation of that. Like, it's all very Star Trek. It's very interesting, and I want to explore all of it. One last question for all you guys before I let you all go. So, Rob, I know you're not joining us for Arc 5, at least not, full time like normal. So I'll ask you a slightly different question.
Okay. Yeah.
You've been with us since episode 1. A very, very long time. No time wasted. All of it was absolutely just great. So, what is one thing that you specifically have done since 2012 that you look back on and go, I nailed that shit. Like, that was perfect. Don't change a thing. It doesn't, whether people reacted to it, the way you wanted to or whatever, it's like that I nailed. Like, I stand by that.
Malchus deeming everything not his fault because it wasn't his fault.
Okay.
Perfect.
That was
Yes.
right off the top of your head. You just knew it.
You can't ask a person to take blame for things that happened in a however many years absence because they inadvertently got time traveled. It is not like he could have seen the slide into tyranny and then taken action to stop it. But instead, he was gone. Not my fault.
You know what? Look, I as Jason agree with you.
You came around.
The
Good.
character that, but okay. The characters in the story most likely wouldn't see it that way because you're thinking of it analytically. They're thinking of it emotionally.
See,
and
that's
all
the
that
issue of
stuff.
being
And
the
it's like,
face.
Also,
yes.
they're racist, so that's also a problem.
Well, yeah, no, but I mean, like, okay, we're talking like Bree, like back in the day. It's like, well, if you hadn't gone to the fucking tomb, you would have been here. It's like, yeah, you couldn't have known time travel. I get it, but like,
She had some other
Stay put.
reasons
Like
to have a chip on her shoulder.
totally. At that, like, there's a lot of stuff to take it. I get it. I'm just saying, I played it the way I played it because I'm trying to think about how all these damn characters would think of it. But no, I understand.
Everybody wanted somewhere to stick the blame. Just stick it to the teeth. I see how it is.
I never read
it's
the
the horns,
war
isn't it?
as Malchus's fault. Other things were Malchus's fault, but like the war, I never blamed on. I thought it was more an Overwatch thing to blame the war on Malchus.
Yeah, no, that was an Overwatch thing. You can't okay. If
Now the
if
genocide
Malchus coming from
that was
that was totally
you did that.
But like, if Rob as Malchus is saying, "Oh, if I could see the slide into tyranny, there was 1,000 opportunities where I could have stopped," there were tens of thousands of people who had thousands of opportunities to change direction at any course in that 17-year span and didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's on everybody. That's just war's messy.
I mean, why would they? They just like break a leg, like Malchus. Didn't have enough porridge, Malchus.
Oh man, it's the thanks Obama. It's thanks
I was
Obama.
just gonna say that.
That's what it is.
Thanks Malchus.
Yes, we're living in Malchus's America. Like that's what it is. It's like, oh shit.
Oh man.
The rest of you guys who are going into Arc 5, you have your characters, and without giving away like, what character you're rolling up, what your general, like, what are you genuinely looking forward to in Arc 5? Like, this is it's new beginnings, like top to bottom. So it's never been a better time for that January 1st, I'm going to do the thing, New Year's, thing. So like, what are you looking forward to in the new arc?
A fresh slate. I feel like for the last 2 years we've been accumulating weight. There's definitely been with these characters, it's like, okay, well, here's your first bit of baggage, and here's a little bit more, and here's a little bit more, and now you're starting with new characters, and it's like, okay, good. Let me try again.
Did that bother you to like look at other groups and it's like, oh, they're raiding mines and they're exploring this, and then like you like did that? But I never really thought of it that way. But that bothered you?
I mean, it didn't bother me in that, like, I know we're all telling different stories, so I wasn't, like, mad at the other groups, but it definitely was like, oh, man, I kind of wish I could be having fun and goofing around like Overseers is. Like, none of our sessions ever got to be that lighthearted, and Overseers was doing some fucked up stuff, but they still got to laugh about it. But our stuff was a little too close to home to be able to laugh about it.
It wasn't,
so,
like, for me, it was just like, oh, like, they got to tell and play with the story they signed up for, where we didn't get to do that.
Yeah.
We were so reactionary to everything happening around us.
Yeah.
We didn't even really get to pick a story to tell.
We were constantly putting out fires that we accidentally started instead of being able to point in directions like, oh, that's exciting, let's go that way. Like, we never got that.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, yeah, I do like how it ended up.
Yeah, I think we pulled it together at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2-3 episodes before we stopped, I did not see Firebrand ending in any kind of like satisfactory manner. I do believe you guys did a shitload with the story that you had in front of you. And even when we split the party again and again and again, like everybody had a chance to like do some stuff. And like, I think that speaks to how good you guys are. Cause I think, again, going way back to the, why doesn't my campaign sound like that? That's really hard to have the campaign work adversarially against each other. And then like still try to move the story forward together without like winning D&D.
Yeah.
That's really tough. So with that being said,
I'm asking for it to stay.
From
Hold on.
Firebrand. Okay. Oh God. Oh, Kelsey's gonna burn bridges. Okay, here we go.
I don't like to say anything, but I am like really happy with like how the story ended, and also like how things went for like Calypso with that story. Which I just want to put this on air somewhere. Like when we were first like introducing our characters to each other, making stuff up, I told everybody that Calypso was working with Silverclaw and that they were double agent. So I just
that really bothered you that you weren't able to tell people like I was a good role player and I informed my squad.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I wasn't that person.
I just want to make sure that that's on the table. It's like, but also I do think it ended up turning out really well. But like even with like the ending and stuff, the fact that like we all kind of got a little bit of what like our characters wanted, but like no one was like completely satisfied. I think it kind of ended up perfectly that way, and where there's still like nothing was like completely fully resolved, which I think is kind of the perfect way to end Firebrand.
And also, I'm really glad that but because of Firebrand, the Brightport has changed from the beginning of the arc to the end in a way that like is very, very
that's for sure
dynamic.
Big.
For
like
sure.
I'm glad that it wasn't just like that we didn't make any effect.
Yeah.
Like we had an effect. There's something
on the world.
stuff happened.
For better or for worse, we're in the history.
I think, how can I put this? Okay, hot take. I don't know if you guys should have just walked in and succeeded. Like mopped the floor with everything.
Oh, no.
Like it was like, why didn't we settle this police corruption thing in this, 100 years long, like it's a confusing, like I wanted to get into like, do you bust people who are doing bad things for somewhat good reasons and like really delve into like the moral implications of it, but we never really got there.
Or like, are we going after the dealers
like
or the people just doing drugs? Because the people doing drugs, but like also the dealers are just trying to be like, there's always 1,000 reasons why people are doing the things they're doing. And it's not always.
I'm still so mad that we found out that one blight was an illusion. We never.
Oh my god!
Things kind of
we never even met the actual furry
before we could do that, but we got our asses kicked. Kind of wasn't even.
Yeah.
I came up with this awesome thing. Lost the Raven in one session. Lost like
I know.
didn't get to really. It's like I mean that happens, but like who knows? Like maybe someday we'll get to flesh stuff like that out. That being said, I'm going to wrap things up here. I want to thank you guys for sitting down. Again, I release you from Firebrand. The curse is lifted.
The curse is lifted. This ghost is now a frog.
Yes.
Sadly, I know what that's from.
Why
now.
are you
Like,
sad
that's-
about
Good
that? It's the best
movie.
movie ever.
No, it's fine. I just never yeah. I feel like I remember that exact bit because of you.
Yes.
That's why.
Because it's the best.
So thank you guys so much. We'll see you with one more of these, I think, right?
Yes, we have one more.
Yeah, we got Overseers. Oh my God, we got
I thought
Overseers.
they'd
to sit and
record
talk
first.
about.
They
That's-
recorded last. It's weird.
No, they got in, got out. Like they're done with that. Like they've moved on. So bye everybody. Thank you so much. We'll see you
Bye.
next week with one more of these.